come together and that they have growled and hissed, but there was no physical kind of contact that was made between the two of them. So it's an interesting sort of situation. They're both young individuals, they're not dominant yet, and therefore they're actually a little bit more tolerant. But it's going to be super interesting to see what happens once Hosana, let's say, finishes this leg, or Thamba finishes his, when they come back down, as to what the interaction is going to be. The amazing part about all of this for me is that Thandi is sitting with her back to both these boys and is not even caring whatsoever. Well, what I presume is Thandi sitting over there. I think it must be her. It looks like it's quite a bit bulky, so maybe it's not actually her after all. But I think it's Thandi over there, and that means that she's actually not even perturbed by the presence of Hosana, who's lying closer to her than Thamba and is not in any way defending it. Is that Tingana? It is Tingana. It is a male. So all three are boys. How ridiculous is this? That is amazing. So it's a father-son weekend. It's a getaway. We're all going away for a holiday. That's absolutely unbelievable. I would never have expected Tingana to be this relaxed with two young boys who are feeding off kills that he's made in the past. That is the most insane thing that I really didn't think that would be the case. It's amazing to see. And the boys are crunching. They're eating and they're feeding quite excessively. So I'm quite surprised. Maybe it's Mvula. Mvula we know would not be too worried about this, but I can't see nicely to actually know who it is. With their back to us like that, it's really very difficult to tell who this individual actually is. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a male. That's for a big male. So we'll have to just go around just now and have a look at who exactly it is. Now, Thamba is still peering through his bush at the top there. He's just watching what's going on and every now and then feasting on what's happening. But how ridiculous is this? 3 male leopards in one sighting is just absolute chaos. It really is. Alaramua, you're asking if Thamba and Hosana are brothers from another mother, or do they have the same mother? So, no. So, Hosana's mother is Karula, who was the mother of Thandi, and Thamba is Thandi's son. So, it just goes to show that basically they are stepbrothers, if you want to call it that, I suppose. It's in a weird way. So, it's Thamba's grandmother is Hosana's mother. So, actually, it's an uncle relationship, isn't it? Yeah. Yes, there we go. So Hosana is the uncle of Thamba, if you wanted to put it in human terms, but they are of similar age, which is where it gets all a little bit confusing. But they are related by blood, so they have the same bloodline coming down. And interestingly enough, even though their mothers are not the same, theoretically Tingana is the father of both of them. So obviously we don't know that for sure, but that's what we think. This is just absolutely unbelievable. I actually can't believe that we've got 3 different leopards and all of them are boys, and that they are so relaxed with one another. There's not growling, there's not hissing, there's no foaming at the mouth. This is absolutely insane. Now, Anna Marie is saying that it's very interesting that they're all getting along and that there's no aggression between them. It was very weird. I would imagine up front there was a little bit, but what surprises me is that Thamba's the one in the tree with most of the carcass and Hosana's down on the ground. Now, I would have thought Hosana would have dominated Thamba and pushed him out, and in fact what I would have really thought is that the bigger of the males would have actually made sure that he's kind of in charge of what goes on and pushed the 2 young boys off the food, but seems not to be worried. Maybe he's had his full and is now allowing that one to finish, or these 2 young boys to finish off their carcasses. It really is a very, very strange dynamic, this, and not something we're going to see every day. What we're seeing right now is a first for me. I've never seen 3 leopards in close proximity like this, feeding off carcasses, with a big male being the one that allows them to feed and is so relaxed with the 2 younger boys. It's a complete anomaly and not something that we're going to witness very often at all. It really is quite ridiculous. So there we go. It is definitely Tingana. Now that he's turned, I can see it's definitely him. You can see he's kind of looking around. Hosana is a bit nervous of him. You see Hosana stands up as soon as Tingana is around. So Hosana is just looking over his shoulder, although back to the leg we go. And I wonder if Tingana is not going to come and try and chase Hosana off that leg. See, Hosana is just turning to face him. This is insane. Jay, no, I've never heard of a dominant pair of leopards in the same area that roam around together as a coalition. That I've never seen. I've obviously seen a lot of male leopards come into contact with one another and you follow each other around in terms of trying to define territories, and that sometimes lasts a day or two, but never a coalition that walks around together for days on end. And what you're seeing here is just absolutely insane. To have three males like this together is almost unheard of, and the fact that Tingana is so relaxed with them, Hosana doesn't seem too perturbed, Thamba up in the tree is not too worried. It just goes to show you that often we give these male leopards such a bad reputation, and particularly Tingana, he's got this bad rep that he's this, nasty male that just eats other leopards for the sake of it. And you can see here that both of these males theoretically are his sons, and he's very tolerant of both of them, even while they're feeding. He's not chasing them, he's not even drooling or excessively salivating. So he obviously recognizes that these are both young individuals and his offspring, and that's why he's being fairly relaxed around them. It's going to change as time goes on, as we get a situation where Hosana and Thamba start to get bigger. We're going to have a situation where Tingana is going to change the whole dynamic, and it's going to become very, very different for these two young boys. He's going to be far less tolerant, especially once they start showing some size. At the moment, Tingana probably knows that he's much bigger than these two, and therefore doesn't have to worry about anything and doesn't have to be too stressed about their sort of threat. But once they get a little bit bigger and they're starting to then vocalize, mate, scent mark, then you'll find Tingana is going to try and push them out. But this is just ridiculous. I actually can't believe that we have three male leopards in one sighting and that they are so relaxed. That is the key to this whole thing, is that they are absolutely chilled. And you can see Thumba's just having a field day. I think he's got the best spot out of all of them at the moment. Maybe Tingana's just a bit perplexed that his two offspring from different parents are sitting in the same area and everything is a bit weird for him. Maybe that's why he's a bit concerned, or I don't know. It's just such a strange thing. But Thamba is definitely tucking in to what is left of those back legs. And James, you say water sighting, you're in spotty heaven. Well, James, you and me both, and I think VM as well. VM was saying, we were saying it's time for a leopard this morning, and well, you can't ask for more than three in one sighting. So we have been absolutely spoilt. And how beautiful is that picture of Thamba just peering through the new marula leaves? Absolutely wonderful. So this is as good as it gets, and we are really in spotted heaven. And I wonder, wouldn't it be amazing if Thandi arrived here as well? Sean, you're asking whether I think Tingana will carry on tolerating these younger ones as they get older. No, I mean, in the experience of all the male leopards that I've followed over the years, they're tolerant of these young boys while they're still small and they're not scent marking, and they see them more as their offspring. But as they start to get older and bigger and they start to develop, so the males become a lot less tolerant and will actually start pushing them out of these areas and make them sort of go off and become nomadic. So the interesting thing with these two young boys and what is going to make it very kind of different and to follow them around over the next little bit is going to be interesting, is that you've got a situation where Tingana is an aging leopard, so he is still in his prime, he is still dominant, he is still the one that is looking after this area, but at the end of the day he is getting older, and he is about 12 years old now, and so his time is starting to get less and less. And these two boys, theoretically, in 2 years' time, if Tingana is 14, shouldn't really be the dominant male, but these two boys will then be in prime position for one of them to take over these areas. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether one of these guys ends up being the dominant males in this area and Tingana then becomes the nomad. That's going to be an interesting case. But for now, his relation to them and his demeanor towards them is just ridiculously relaxed, and it's not something that we're going to see very often at all. We know Mvula was like this with his offspring a lot of the time, and even young males that weren't his, he seemed to be quite comfortable to share carcasses. But to see them like this, where Tingana is allowing them to feed and himself not coming in and imposing himself and trying to feed, is really quite ridiculous. Never really seen this. Even with Mvula, when there was carcasses, he used to dominate the carcass, push the young males off. He would tolerate them being close by, but he wouldn't let them feed. And you can see here both the young boys are feeding and Tingana is the one sitting watching. So it is a weird situation, and not something that you would see every day at all. Elitra, you're saying maybe it's because there's no female around for them to get a little bit kind of feisty with one another and fight over. Well, it's possible. You know, at the end of the day, it's still with leopards, and we saw this with Thamba and Hosana when they came together at Twin Dams a month ago, is that even if there's no female and two young males that are not dominant, they're not mating, they're not pushing for dominance, they will still have a confrontation and still be some sort of aggression towards each other. They were growling and hissing. Yes, they didn't come to physical blows, but there was still some sort of growling and hissing that happened, so there was no female present at that time. This situation, I think it's more a case that Tingana recognizes these two individuals as leopards that he spent a lot of time with, that are still young, and they are still under his sort of radar in terms of they're not a threat to him, so he doesn't have to worry about them. He knows that they are offspring of his, and therefore he's being a lot more relaxed about the whole situation. It's a really weird one, and like I say, there might be the fact that no female is here changes his whole demeanor. It's difficult to say, but until such time as a female does arrive, we're not going to be really sure as to why these guys are being so tolerant of one another. Obviously, Hosana and Thamba have spent time together around kills before, and we've seen them spending time at Twin Dams where they were a little bit aggressive to one another, but still kind of were in the same area. So it's an interesting kind of case study, and it's going to be weird to see how Thamba and Hosana interact, because without Hosana having a mother, he tends to cling on to wherever there's other females, and we've seen him a lot with Thandi and around Thandi, and I wonder if him and Thamba are just going to end up getting quite used to one another and walking around sort of using one another as a sort of platform to grow up and get used to each other. It's weird. Right, now, because it's Cat Day and because it is a male-themed day, we'll have to call it Man Day, we've got a situation where James has also got a male cat. So let's go across to James and see what male cat he's got and what these males get up to in the meantime.
I think